And he was like, dude, like, how are you going to say John Jones is one of the greatest of all time when he's fucking failed a drug test?
Multiple times.
Multiple times. Like, listen to yourself right now. Like, you're lying to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Like, he's like, you actually look stupid. Like,
the UFC 330 fallout is just beginning. Sean Strickland's next opponent has been leaked, and the matchup is so unexpected that the entire middleweight division is in shock. But that's not the only bombshell. Ian Garry, days away from the biggest fight of his life against Islam Makhachev, is facing a massive backlash that threatens to derail everything. A sparring partner has come forward with explosive accusations, calling Garry a liar in a controversy that's gone viral just weeks before the title fight. Garry's credibility is crumbling. His preparation is being questioned, and the Irishman who promised to dominate the pound-for-pound king is now fighting a war on two fronts, inside the cage and in the court of public opinion. The timing couldn't be worse, the stakes couldn't be higher, and the MMA world is watching every second of this implosion. This is the story of the UFC's biggest scandal in months, and the fighters caught in the crossfire.
You know, his wife asked me if she can film the footage of the sparring, and I accepted it. And but they didn't ask me if they can release it or no, and I wonder why they didn't release.
The internet moves fast, reputations move faster, and in the weeks leading up to the biggest fight of his career, Ian Garry is learning just how fragile both can be. The controversy began with a video, a resurfaced clip of Garry training at Kill Cliff FC in Florida. In the clip, Garry is taken down by his sparring partner, an undefeated PFL featherweight named Alexei Pergande. The video went viral. Garry didn't like it. He unfollowed Pergande on Instagram. And then he made a public accusation that would ignite a firestorm. Garry claimed that Pergande had filmed their training session without his permission and then secretly continued filming even after he was asked to stop. Because he filmed me without permission, then secretly kept filming me after I asked him to stop and has been editing and reposting the same session for 4 years, Garry wrote. I like the kid but respect when someone says no to filming you. But Pergande had a very different story, and he had receipts. The PFL prospect posted the full, unedited 3-round sparring session online. He offered proof that no one from Garry's team had ever asked him to stop filming. In fact, Pergande pointed out that Garry's own wife, his training partner Chris Curtis, and even his cameraman were all present while the filming took place. I didn't know the day would come when Ian Garry is lying about me, Pergande said on TikTok. None of that was true. I'm not sure why he made up a lie that never happened. Pergande clarified that Garry has improved since the session, and that he wasn't the one who reposted the clip to embarrass the UFC star. But the damage was already done. Garry's credibility was being questioned. His preparation for the Makhachev fight was being scrutinized. And the MMA world was left wondering, if Garry is lying about this, what else is he lying about? The answer to that question leads to a familiar name, Shavkat Rakhmonov. The undefeated Kazakh welterweight, the only man to have beaten Garry professionally, had already accused Garry of selective editing in 2024. Before their fight at UFC 310, Garry released old sparring footage that made him look good against Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov fired back, claiming that Garry had conveniently left out the parts where he tapped to a choke. I wonder why they didn't release the other part of the sparring, Rakhmonov told Ariel Helwani. We would have seen how Ian Garry taps. Now, with the Pergande controversy, a pattern is emerging. A pattern of selective editing. A pattern of blaming others. A pattern that follows Garry everywhere he goes. Even Leon Edwards, the former welterweight champion, has accused Garry of lying about his brief stint at Team Renegade in 2023. Edwards claimed Garry was asked to leave because he was not adding to the team's culture. Garry, of course, has a different version of events. All of this is happening with less than 2 months to go before UFC 330. Garry is preparing for the most important fight of his life. And instead of talking about his strategy against Islam Makhachev, he's defending himself against accusations of dishonesty. The timing couldn't be worse. The stakes couldn't be higher. And the MMA world is watching every second of this implosion. The Pergande incident is not an isolated event. It is part of a pattern that follows Ian Garry everywhere he goes. A pattern that has left a trail of burned bridges, fractured relationships, and unanswered questions. And with UFC 330 just weeks away, that pattern is now being scrutinized like never before. Because the question everyone is asking is the same. If Garry is lying about Pergande, what else has he lied about? The answer, according to those who have trained with him, is unsettling. Let's start with the most famous controversy. Before Garry joined Shootbox Diego Lima in Brazil, he trained at Kill Cliff FC in Florida. That's where he first encountered Shavkat Rakhmonov, the only man to beat him professionally. The two sparred together extensively. And according to Rakhmonov, Garry's team selectively edited the footage to make him look good. At the time, his wife asked me if she can film the footage of his sparring, and I accepted it, Rakhmonov told Ariel Helwani. But they didn't ask me if they can release it or not. and I wonder why they didn't release the other part of the sparring. We would have seen how Ian Garry taps. Rachmanov's accusation is damning. He claims that Garry's team released footage that made Garry look dominant, while hiding the moments where he was submitted. Selective editing. Misleading the public. Creating a false narrative. The same pattern that emerged with Purgande. But the pattern doesn't stop there. Before Killcliff FC, Garry trained at Team Renegade in Birmingham, England. That's where he crossed paths with Leon Edwards, the former UFC welterweight champion. Garry was eventually banned from the gym. The reason? Allegations of recording sparring sessions without consent. Edwards himself confirmed the ban, though he offered a more diplomatic explanation. Must have given him too much work, Edwards said. I don't get it. But other sources were less diplomatic. The pattern was clear. Garry had been asked to leave multiple gyms. Multiple training partners had accused him of dishonesty. Multiple controversies had followed him from camp to camp. Even Chris Curtis, Garry's former training partner at Killcliff FC, has been caught in the crossfire. Curtis was injured during a sparring session with Garry, leading to speculation that Garry was careless or reckless. Curtis publicly defended Garry, clarifying that the injury was a freak accident. Ian wasn't the main one responsible, Curtis said. It was not Ian's fault, but Curtis's defense has been overshadowed by the broader pattern. One injury can be a coincidence. 2 controversies can be bad luck. But 3, 4? At some point, the pattern becomes undeniable. Now, with UFC 330 approaching, the pattern is being used against Garry. Purgande posted the full, unedited sparring session online, daring Garry to prove his claims. Purgande's message was direct. No one from Ian Garry's team ever expressed anything about them being uncomfortable about us recording, and I think this footage proves that. Not sure the reason of him lying about it, but here we are. The evidence is public. The accusation is clear. And Garry, who once promised to dominate Makhachev in the 4th round, is now fighting a war on 2 fronts. The question is whether he can survive both battles. The answer will determine everything. The accusations flew, the internet exploded, and then Alexei Purgan did something that changed the entire narrative. He didn't just deny Garry's claims. He posted the full, unedited, 3-round sparring session online for the world to see. The complete footage, no cuts, no edits, no selective framing, just 15 minutes of training captured in its raw, unvarnished reality. Posting this to end the nonsense of rumors and misinformation being spread around the internet, including the lies from Ian Garry himself that could affect my future training with high-level fighters. Purgande wrote in the video's description. The message was clear. Here is the truth. Watch it. Judge for yourself. And ask yourself one simple question. Who is really lying here? The full footage paints a very different picture from Garry's accusations. Purgan's fiancée was filming openly, not secretly. She was positioned right up against the cage fence, filming freely and visibly. And according to Purgande, multiple people were present who would have witnessed any objection. Garry's own wife, his training partner, UFC middleweight Chris Curtis, his cameraman. All of them were standing right next to Purgande's fiancée while she filmed. Not once, Purgande insists, did anyone ask her to stop. Not once did anyone express discomfort. Not once did anyone say, hey, can we not record this session? Purgande's response was direct and devastating. I didn't know the day would come when Ian Garry is lying about me. None of that was true. I'm not sure why he made up a lie that never happened. Purgande also clarified that he wasn't the one who reposted the clip that went viral. He didn't upload the footage of Garry being taken down to embarrass the UFC star ahead of his title fight. Someone else reposted it. Purgande had nothing to do with it. But Garry unfollowed him anyway, and made public accusations that Purgande says could damage his reputation and future training opportunities. Ian Garry is a bigger, better, and faster striker than me, so it's basically just 15 min of me getting whooped, Purgande wrote, acknowledging Garry's skill. He even said that Garry has obviously improved since that session years ago. But none of that changes the core accusation. Garry lied about what happened. The evidence is now public. The full footage shows the entire session, including Purgande getting whooped for 15 minutes, as he openly admits. Garry's original claim that Purgande was editing and reposting the same session for 4 years becomes harder to defend when the unedited footage is available for anyone to watch. And Purgande's question hangs in the air. If no one from Garry's team ever asked to stop filming, why did Garry make up this story? Purgande has an answer. Timing. The controversy exploded because of Garry's upcoming UFC 330 title fight against Islam Makhachev. The PFL featherweight believes Garry's team is using the controversy to deflect attention from the real question. Can Garry stop Makhachev's wrestling? The resurfaced footage of Garry getting taken down in sparring plays directly into Makhachev's narrative. The champion's entire game plan is built on controlling where the fight takes place. And Garry, the confident challenger who predicted a 4th-round finish, is now facing questions about his ability to stay off the ground. Purgande's full footage release wasn't just a defense. It was a counterattack. Expose the lie, show the truth, and let the world decide who to believe. But Pergande is not the only one who has accused Garry of selective editing and dishonesty. A pattern is emerging. Before Kill Cliff FC, Garry was banned from Team Renegade in Birmingham, England, over allegations of recording sparring sessions without consent. Former UFC welterweight champion Leon Edwards confirmed Garry was banned from the gym, though he offered a diplomatic explanation. Must have given him too much work. I don't get it. But other sources were less diplomatic. The pattern was clear. Garry had been asked to leave multiple gyms. Multiple training partners had accused him of dishonesty. Multiple controversies had followed him from camp to camp. Then there's Shavkat Rakhmonov, the only man to beat Garry professionally. He has accused Garry's team of selectively editing sparring footage from their time together at Kill Cliff FC, releasing only the parts where Garry looked good while hiding the moments when he was submitted. I wonder why they didn't release the other part of the sparring, Rakhmonov told Ariel Helwani. According to Rakhmonov, Garry's wife asked his permission to film the session, but never asked permission to release it. And Rakhmonov claims the unreleased footage shows Garry tapping to a choke. Garry later admitted to TalkSport that Rakhmonov had submitted him in sparring, but dismissed its relevance to the fight. If he's hanging on to something like that from training 2 or 3 years ago, do it on Saturday night. The pattern is undeniable. Pergande, Rakhmonov, Team Renegade. Each incident follows the same template. A controversy emerges. Garry releases selective footage or makes accusations. The other party produces evidence. And Garry's credibility takes another hit. Now, with the Pergande full footage released, the pattern is being scrutinized like never before. The question on everyone's mind is the same. If Garry has a history of selective editing and dishonesty, can the MMA community trust anything he says? And if his credibility is crumbling, how will it affect his preparation for the biggest fight of his life? Just when the MMA world thought the chaos was contained to the welterweight division, a second bombshell dropped, and this one has the entire middleweight division in a state of shock. A leaked document has surfaced, not a contract, not a signed agreement, but a proposed matchup that the UFC was trying to keep under wraps until after UFC 330. The document shows a booking date, a venue, and a name that no one expected to see opposite Sean Strickland. The former middleweight champion is reportedly being lined up to face nobody. That's right. According to multiple sources, Strickland is being offered a fight that has the potential to shake the entire division to its core. But the leaked document doesn't just reveal the name. It reveals the UFC's desperation to keep this matchup hidden until the right moment, a moment that hasn't come yet. Let's start with what we know. Sean Strickland has been one of the most active and controversial fighters on the roster. He headlined a middleweight title fight against Dricus du Plessis, losing a split decision at UFC 297. It was a defining moment for the division, leaving many wondering if the controversial American would ever get another shot at the top of the mountain. Then he bounced back and brutally knocked out Abusufyan Magomedov at UFC 302, proving that he was still a threat. Then came a controversial win over Paulo Costa at UFC 315. Since then, Strickland has been vocal about his desire for a rematch with du Plessis, or a title shot against the winner of any upcoming title bout. He has been calling out champions and contenders alike, demanding respect, demanding the fights he believes he deserves. But the leaked document suggests that the UFC has other plans for him. The leaked document, according to sources, shows Strickland being offered a fight against Khamzat Chimaev. Yes, the Chechen Wolf, the undefeated monster who has destroyed everyone put in front of him. Chimaev's wrestling is arguably the most dominant in the division, a relentless pressure that has broken every opponent he's faced. Strickland's striking is elite. His cardio is relentless, and his durability is unquestioned. This is a nightmare matchup for Strickland. And it's a nightmare that the UFC was trying to keep hidden until the timing was perfect. But the leak happened. The cat is out of the bag, and the middleweight division is now in a frenzy. The implications of this fight are enormous. If Strickland wins, he is right back in the title picture. If Chimaev wins, he becomes the undeniable #1 contender. And if the fight falls through, well, the UFC has a backup plan. The UFC 331 card is now the talk of the MMA world. And all of it is happening while Ian Garry is still trying to defend himself against accusations of dishonesty. The double bombshell has created an unprecedented level of chaos. The welterweight division is focused on Garry's credibility crisis. The middleweight division is focused on the Strickland-Chimaev bomb. And the fans are caught in the middle, watching two seismic storylines unfold simultaneously. The next chapter of the story will determine the future of both divisions. But for now, the chaos is only just beginning. And the leaked document is proof that the UFC has been hiding far more than anyone realized. The scene is set. The UFC 331 press conference is still weeks away, but the chaos has already begun. Two massive storylines are colliding in real time: Ian Garry's credibility crisis and Sean Strickland's leaked fight with Khamzat Chimaev. And the MMA world is struggling to keep up. The controversy surrounding Garry has taken on a life of its own. The full footage of his sparring session with Alexei Pergande is now public. The unedited evidence shows the entire 3-round session, filmed openly with multiple witnesses present. Pergande has effectively disproven Garry's accusations. No one from Ian Garry's team ever expressed anything about them being uncomfortable about us recording, Pergande said. I think this footage proves that. The damage to Garry's reputation is incalculable. Just weeks before the biggest fight of his life, he is being exposed as someone who lies about his training partners. His credibility is in tatters. And the fans are not forgiving. The comments section has turned on him. The media is circling, and the UFC is reportedly considering whether to proceed with the title fight or find a replacement. But the controversy doesn't stop there. The leaked Strickland-Chimaev fight has the middleweight division on edge. The two men have a history that makes this matchup even more intriguing. Strickland once challenged Chimaev to a fight, calling him out publicly. I said, Chimaev, you didn't understand me, but tomorrow we will meet at 3 o'clock and we will fight. With or without gloves, it makes no difference, Strickland said. And do you know what happened? No show, no fight. Chimaev hushed up this topic. Now, the fight might finally be happening. And Strickland's previous call-out adds a layer of personal animosity to an already explosive matchup. If Chimaev were here now, I could fight him to the death. No question, Strickland said. The UFC tried to keep this fight hidden, but the leak has forced their hand, and now the entire world is watching. The leak that refuses to die, but Garry's controversies don't stop with Pergande. There is a pattern emerging, a pattern of selective editing, public accusations, and burned bridges. Before Killcliff FC, Garry was asked to leave Team Renegade in Birmingham, England, over allegations of recording sparring sessions without consent. Former UFC welterweight champion Leon Edwards confirmed Garry was banned from the gym. There's a culture in the gym that we're trying to build, Edwards explained. The difference with Ian is that when he comes in, he brings his cameras with him, his girlfriend with him, he's late to the sessions. There's a lot going on now, so the coaches and the team decided that we wish you well on your journey, but your culture doesn't fit our culture. The pattern is undeniable. Pergande. Team Renegade. Each incident follows the same template. A controversy emerges. Garry makes accusations. The other party produces evidence. And Garry's credibility takes another hit. Then there's Shavkat Rakhmonov, the only man to beat Garry professionally. The Kazakh fighter has been sidelined with a knee injury since their December 2024 fight. Rakhmonov has not competed since, and recently underwent another surgery after re-injuring his knee. He is expected to take another 10 months to recover. He has also been dropped from the official UFC welterweight rankings, with Garry taking his number 2 spot, and Garry has been taking credit for it. He reposted a slow-motion video of him bending Rakhmonov's knee with an oblique kick during their fight. The caption read, Ian destroyed Shavkat's career. Garry also wrote, he was eliminated at our title eliminator. The backlash has been swift and brutal. Fans and former champions alike have roasted Garry for his comments. Leon Edwards, who has had his own history with Garry, mocked him after his loss to Rakhmonov. Ian's biggest achievement in this sport is losing to Shavkat, and that's a fact, Edwards said. Fans have been even more direct. Comments include, he beat you with no legs, so he destroyed his legs and still got dominated, and being happy about ending someone's career is the type of S a man like him would be proud of. Even Daniel Cormier had previously noted during the broadcast of UFC 310 that Rakhmonov did not look like himself, explaining that he entered the fight with a potentially torn MCL and ligament damage. Despite that, Rakhmonov still beat Garry via unanimous decision. The internet has responded with the devastating meme, he beat you with no legs. The irony is almost poetic. Garry is bragging about injuring a fighter who still beat him. He is celebrating a loss as if it were a win. He is exposing himself as someone who cannot take responsibility for his own defeats. The timing of these controversies is catastrophic for Garry. He is preparing for the biggest fight of his life. Islam Makhachev awaits him at UFC 330. The welterweight championship is on the line. And instead of focusing on the fight, Garry is defending himself against accusations of lying, selective editing, and poor sportsmanship. His credibility is in ruins. The MMA community is united against him. And Makhachev, the pound-for-pound king, is watching all of this unfold, taking notes, preparing to punish the man who has so publicly disgraced himself. The stage is set for the most brutal title fight in recent memory. And no matter what happens inside the cage, the damage outside the cage has already been done. The fans are not forgiving. They have watched Garry lie, deflect, and take credit for injuries. They have watched him call out a fighter with a torn MCL and claim victory. They have watched him mock a rival while his own credibility crumbles. And they have decided that Ian Garry is not a future champion. Ian Garry is a cautionary tale. The collapse of his reputation is complete. The MMA world is watching, and the UFC is scrambling to contain the damage. But some damage cannot be contained. Some damage is permanent. The next chapter of this story is written not by the media, but by the fans. And the verdict is already in. The countdown to UFC 330 has begun. Ian Garry's reputation is in ruins. Sean Strickland's leaked fight is confirmed, and the MMA world is bracing for the most explosive night in recent history. One fighter may never recover from the damage done outside the cage. Another may never be the same after what happens inside it. The chaos is real, the scandal is real, and no one, not Garry, not Strickland, not even the UFC itself, can control what happens next. This is not a script. This is the truth. And the truth is far more shocking than fiction.